Doug Morgan, and you're listening to Uncommon Sense, where we hunt for the truth in the topics you're not supposed to talk about, Christianity and politics. Welcome back once again to FOMO Friday. Yes, this is Friday, and here on the podcast every Friday, we bring you the stories of the week that you should know a little bit about. And this week, you probably have heard at least something about these stories that we're going to bring you this week. Unlike some weeks, this week was jam-packed, full of some really big stories. So, if you have already heard a little bit about them, that's fine. We're going to hopefully bring you even some more context and some more detail to those stories. But we want you not to have that fear of missing out. And so this is what we do every single Friday. Now, this very first one, and technically, I guess it happened on Saturday. So it happened at the end of last week, but it is a big one. And from a series of articles from the Daily Wire comes this. Of course, the president of Venezuela is, well, no longer president of Venezuela. Yeah. President Maduro is no longer president there. Why? Because Nicolas Maduro was taken out by U.S. forces. We went in, and believe it or not, it only took 88 minutes to, as soon as our boots hit the ground, to get him out of there, where he was hiding, and then get him onto one of our warships. 88 minutes is what it took. I mean, this was a demonstration of military might that shows that we are by far, without any doubt whatsoever, the military leader of the world. I mean, this was precision. This was something that no other country in the world, I would venture to say even Israel or anyone else that has a military that some would say maybe would come close to ours. There's no way. This was a clear demonstration of military power and just how precise they did this. There wasn't a single U.S. military man that was there was a couple injured, but there was none of them that were killed. There was one helicopter that got shot at and did some damage, but they were able to still fly and go back. I mean, it was absolutely just extraordinary what happened. Now, since then, and it's been kind of interesting because there's been a lot of Venezuelans outside of their country that have been just absolutely celebrating. As you may or may not know, there was about a quarter of all Venezuelans have left the country because of Maduro and how and his regime. They were fleeing the country, and there was about 25% of the people have left. Those people absolutely celebrating. But we saw some celebration within Venezuela as well, but not to the extent that maybe some would think. And now we start to know why. Plainclothes gunmen deployed by Venezuela leaders are walking the streets and stopping vehicles as they crack down on dissent and pro-American sentiment in the wake of the capture of dictator Nicolas Maduro by U.S. forces. The paramilitary members, known as collectivos, were out in force on Tuesday as the pro-Maduro regime seeks to maintain control of the country following the surprise U.S. strikes over the weekend. Now, The Guardian reported that men armed with rifles set up checkpoints in the capital city of Caracas, where they stopped drivers to search their vehicles, phones, and personal belongings, looking for any evidence of support for the United States capturing Maduro, and this according to the Telegraph as well. Police, meanwhile, were instructed to, quote, immediately begin the national search and capture of everyone involved in the promotion or support of the armed attack by the United States, unquote. Yeah. One Caracas resident, Escanola is his last name, told the Guardian that anyone who is suspected of supporting the United States could be arrested. Now, the collectivos are reportedly targeting neighborhoods known to be home to those who support the opposition to Venezuela's current government. Quote, there's fear. There are armed civilians here, said Escalona. And he also said that you never know what might happen. They might attack people. On Monday, 14 journalists, mostly foreign correspondents, were detained by Venezuelan authorities in Caracas before all of them, except one, were later released. Two people in western Venezuela were arrested after they celebrated the capture of Maduro, according to NBC News. Quote, the suspects were shouting slogans against the government, celebrating the kidnapping of President Nicolas Maduro and First Lady Cecilia Flores, offending PSUV militants in the neighborhood and inciting violence. In addition to firing shots, according to the police, pro-Maduro Venezuelans, meanwhile, marched on the streets of Caracas on Tuesday in support of their captured leader and his wife. A large-scale crackdown on anti-Maduro sentiment comes as President Donald Trump urges the Venezuelan government to cooperate with the United States. Quote, if they don't behave, we will do a second strike. That's what Trump said on Sunday. He also said that he actually thought it might take two strikes to do what he was able to do in one. But after Maduro's capture, Trump said that the United States would assume control of Venezuela until a transition could safely take place. Venezuela is now led by interim president Delcy Rodriguez, who was Maduro's vice president and also worked under Venezuelan strongman Hugo Chavez. Trump said that Rodriguez would pay a very big price, probably bigger than Maduro, if she refused to cooperate with America's demands. Since taking over, Rodriguez has condemned the United States operation to capture Maduro and has claimed that Maduro remains the rightful leader of Venezuela. Of course, he isn't, but so publicly she's saying things that, the communists, the regime wants to hear. Behind the scenes, it looks like she's cooperating with the U.S. I don't know if she's going to be the one that will have to lead because, she is, she was his vice president and she has some real ties, including her father, to this type of regime. But we'll have to see. While the Trump administration says it's prepared to apply pressure to Rodriguez, the pro-Maduro regime appears unlikely to give up power anytime soon, and partly I would say is because she kind of has control of the military, so she's the one that kind of does have the most power right now in that country. Maria Corina Machado, the Venezuelan opposition leader and most recent Nobel Peace Prize winner, told Fox News that Rodriguez represents the same threat to Venezuelans as Maduro. Delcy Rodriguez, this is a quote by her, Rodriguez, as you know, is one of the main architects of torture, persecution, corruption, narco-trafficking, is what she said. She's the main ally and liaison with Russia, China, Iran, certainly not an individual that could be trusted by international investors. And she's really rejected, reputed by the Venezuelan people. Again, the problem is that she doesn't have any real power with the military, whereas Rodriguez does. So, it'll be interesting to see how this comes out. We're going to be playing a role, obviously, in that, and we'll have to see how that role either expands or contracts. So, the other really big story of the week was the shooting in Minnesota, and this was rather interesting because of there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and I wanted to get to the bottom of some of this. The federal shooting in Minneapolis on Wednesday involving the federal immigration agents comes as threats against ICE agent surge. with both the number of assaults and agents and threats against them up more than 1,000%. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, speaking after an agent fatally shot a woman who accelerated her car towards the agent as they asked her to exit the vehicle. Said that the agent involved had been rammed by a car in previous encounter. We're going to get into that here in just a little bit. But here's what Noam says. It says ICE alone is facing a 1,300%. That's what I said. ICE alone is facing a 1,300% increase in assaults against them. And get this, an 8,000% increase in death threats against all of them. In fact, the very same officer who was attacked today, she said, had previously been dragged by an anti-ICE rider who had rammed him with a car and drug him back in June. He sustained injuries at that time as well. So yeah, we'll get into that here in just a little bit more. But this is when you look at what happened. You look and there is video of what happened, and I would say that if you haven't seen the video, that you probably should, because there's a lot of misinformation, and not just the video taken by her wife, but also the video taken where it looks down on the situation, and it's a better angle because you can definitely see this ICE agent is in front of this vehicle, and the vehicle is accelerating toward him, and he does get actually hit by the vehicle. Over the summer, on June 4th, a militia of alleged Antifa members attempted to lure ICE officers out of an agency facility in North Texas by setting off fireworks. When the officers emerged, the attackers opened fire, injuring a local police officer. And so this is just one of the things that ICE has been dealing with. A nearby facility in Dallas was targeted in September by a shooter who stood on a nearby rooftop and fired into an ICE sally port where detainees were being moved. Although the shooter was later turned the gun on himself, intended to kill ICE officers, and he ended up just killing 2 detainees. Again, a tragedy, but wasn't his goal. The Daily Wire got a glimpse into the brutality of the attacks during an earlier interview with an ICE officer who had 13 stitches in his upper lip and second-degree burns across his body after an illegal immigrant pedophile he was trying to nab attacked him. The officer, who recently returned to the agency after the Trump administration offered incentives to retirees, said, quote, "It's a lot different from the job I left. Everybody's running. Everybody's fighting." This is what he told the Daily Wire. He said, I would like the rhetoric to cool down a little bit. I think that's probably fueled by some things that have been said about us, he said. The woman killed on Wednesday had been identified by her mother as a 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good. Good's mother claimed her daughter wasn't involved with anti-ICE activities, though that's actually not true. The video from the incident shows officers ordering her to get out of the vehicle before she backed up the car and then moved it forward. The video appears to show the car making contact with the ICE official. The officer, who the Department of Homeland Security said feared for his life, fired at the woman, killing her, and the federal agent was transported to a nearby hospital and was later released. The Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem called the incident an attack of domestic terrorism and has defended the officers' actions as self-defense. And again, it does. She doesn't have to strike the officer for him to shoot her. He just has to fear for his life and he can use deadly force in order to stop that situation. So who was the woman that was killed in the incident? Well, more information has emerged about the woman shot by a federal immigration officer in Minneapolis on Wednesday that gives a glimpse into the anti-ICE activism she apparently participated in. Renee Nicole Good, 37, was identified by family who said that she didn't have any involvement with anti-ICE activities. And the Trump administration identified her as a domestic terrorist. So which one was it, right? Well, some local residents attending a vigil for Good, however, identified her as a warrior who participated in an ICE watch group to document and resist the agency, according to the New York Post. Good first learned of the group through her 6-year-old son's leftist charter school, which prides itself on involving kids in political and social activism, the outlet reported. This is a quote, she was a warrior. She died doing what was right, unquote. This is what a mother named Lisa, spelled with 2 E's, by the way, whose child attended the same school, told the New York Post. Lisa went on to say that Good, quote, was trained against these ICE agents on what to do, what not to do. It's a very thorough training, adding that the training included how, quote, to listen to commands, to know your rights, to whistle when you see an ICE agent, unquote. Well, county worker Kristen Peter, who was 30, said Good was on the same ICE watch team as one of her co-workers. Peter said she herself was planning to go to one of the group's meetings on Thursday night. Quote, they were on the same team. They would eat meals together, as she told the New York Post. Quote, from my understanding, she was involved in social justice. We are a tight-knit community, and a lot of parents are activists. This is what a former Southside gym teacher, Rashad Rich, who resigned from the school last month, told the New York Post. Good was killed after she appeared to be blocking a road ICE agents were trying to pass through. The officers appeared to order her to get out of the vehicle before she put it in reverse and then went forward and sped forward at the ICE agent. One video appears to show the car making contact with the ICE officer, who was standing in front before the shots were fired. The Trump administration says the ICE officer acted in self-defense, but Democrats, like the New York City's Mayor Zoran Mandami, have classified his actions as murder. Yeah, murder. Quote, I know she was doing the right thing. I watched the video plenty of times, but I also know in my heart the woman she was, and she was doing everything right, is what Lisa said. A federal investigation upon the shooting is going on. And so, we're hearing a lot of stuff. This agent should have, he must have been a rookie. He must have, he didn't do the right thing. He should be convicted of murder. All this stuff, right? Well, let's take a look. Who was this particular ICE agent? Well, nearly 7 months before, a federal immigration officer opened fire on a woman accused of trying to ram him with her car. He was brutally dragged by an illegal immigrant sex offender he was trying to take off the streets. Yeah, we kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier, but here's the details. The Immigration and Customs Enforcement officer opened fire, of course, Wednesday, as the woman said to be blocking a road they were attempting to pass through, didn't get out of her car as the federal agents instructed before she reversed her vehicle and pulled forward. One video appears to show the ICE officer, who has more than 10 years of experience, fatally shooting the woman after her vehicle made contact with him. Trump administration has defended the ICE officers and saying that that Good weaponized her vehicle to plow down the agent. Democratic politicians, however, have accused the ICE officer of murdering Good, and protesters have formed angry mobs in Minnesota and other places to display their outrage with the ICE officer's response. In June, that same ICE officer was the victim of a brutal assault where he was dragged roughly 100 yards down a Minnesota street as he was chasing down an illegal immigrant convicted of repeatedly sexually abusing his 16-year-old stepdaughter, according to court documents. At the time, the ICE officer made multiple attempts to de-escalate the situation and give the subject a chance to comply with his orders. This is what the court documents reveal. Now, Guatemalan illegal immigrant Roberto Carlos Munoz was out in the community after local authorities flouted a federal detainer and released him from custody. Federal agents waited for Munoz to pull out of his driveway at his home in Bloomington, Minnesota, before pulling him over. According to the court documents, the ICE officer pulled diagonally in front of Munoz's vehicle as an FBI agent turned on his lights to prompt him to pull over. Well, that forced him to stop. And the ICE officer, alongside the FBI agent, then pulled behind the illegal immigrant's vehicle and approached him and identified themselves as federal law enforcement. The ICE officer was also donning a patch that read police on his vest. And the officers had their weapons drawn as a precaution since Munoz initially refused to pull over. When Munoz raised his hands, the ICE officer holstered his gun while the FBI agent kept his out but aimed it down. The ICE officer walked up to Munoz's window and ordered him in both English and Spanish to put the car in park. Well, Munoz failed to do so and instead rolled his window a third of the way down. At that point, the ICE officer asked him for identification, which Munoz held up to the window. And after that, Munoz placed the car in park. The ICE officer asked Munoz to roll the window all the way down, which he refused to do. That's when the ICE officer pulled out his taser and pointed it at Munoz's chest. So Munoz refused to lower the window and fully and didn't comply with orders to open the car door. The ICE officer warned Munoz in both English and Spanish that he would break the window if he continued to ignore him. The illegal immigrants continued to dig in his heels, forcing the ICE officer to break the rear driver's side window to avoid covering Munoz in broken glass. The ICE officer then reached into the car and tried to unlock the driver's side door as he continued pointing the taser at Munoz. Now, while the ICE officer his arm was in the car, Munoz proceeded to put the car in drive before turning the wheel to the right to go around the vehicle in front of him and driving onto the curb and accelerated rapidly. As Munoz proceeded at a high rate of speed, the ICE officer was dragged along with his arm stuck in the car. That led to ICE officer to fire his taser at Munoz. Despite being struck twice with electric charge, Munoz was undeterred and continued driving away as the ICE officer was screaming. Munoz then began weaving his vehicle in an attempt to shake the ICE officer away. The officer was ultimately able to break free from Munoz, and he got off the curb and returned to the street where they were initially situated. The illegal immigrant continued to flee. Authorities were eventually able to arrest Munoz, according to the Department of Homeland Security, and the ICE officer was hospitalized and received 20 stitches in his right arm and 13 in his left arm. Munoz was later convicted of assaulting a federal officer. So that's what happened, less than a year ago with this particular agent. This particular agent was in front of this car, and again, it wasn't the fact that she was like backing out of her driveway or something. She was blocking the street, trying to get in the way of federal authorities, which in itself is a crime. And so you don't have to help them with their investigation, but you cannot prohibit them from doing so. And so that was a little bit about who this officer was, not a rookie, but somebody who is trained in this and has been through it before. Well, what's interesting is now a lot of these liberal Democrats and things are now coming out, and they're saying just all kinds of stuff that politically it's stupid, because the American people are not on the side of the protesters here, and it's also stupid because they're throwing fuel on the fire, and you're only going to see things continue to heat up. In fact, Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, has just called out the National Guard to help with the protesters. I put that in air quotes. But he's basically already warned and threatened that he's going to use the National Guard on ICE. That's, if he does, I mean, that is insurrection. I mean, that's you want to talk about, well, January 6th was an insurrection. No, it wasn't. But this would be. I mean, this would be the military of a state going against the military of the federal government. But anyway. But we're also seeing other things. A suspected member of the notorious, and this maybe even ties in the two stories that we talked about. A suspected member of the notorious Venezuelan gang, Tren de Agua, attempted to run over federal immigration officers in Portland, Oregon, according to the Department of Homeland Security. One Border Patrol officer pulled a gun and fired a defensive shot at the vehicle. The suspected gang member and his passenger, also suspected of gang ties, sped off after that. Quote, at 2:19 Pacific Standard Time, U.S. Border Patrol agents were conducting a targeted vehicle stop in Portland, Oregon. The passenger of the vehicle and target is a Venezuelan illegal alien affiliated with the transnational Tren de Agua prostitution ring and involved in a recent shooting in Portland, according to Homeland Security. They said that the vehicle driver is believed to be a member of the vicious Venezuelan gang, Tren de Agua. And when agents identified themselves to the vehicle occupants, the driver weaponized his vehicle and attempted to run over the law enforcement agents. Fearing for his life and safety, an agent fired a defensive shot. The driver drove off with the passenger fleeing the scene, is what the statement continues to say. The department released a statement after reports began circulating that federal immigration agents shot and wounded 2 people in Portland. It was not immediately clear if the report and the statements were from Homeland Security or someone related. The shooting in Portland comes a day after, of course, the ICE agents fatally shot the woman in Minnesota. And so what we're seeing here is we're seeing things like this happen because of the rhetoric that's coming out of these Democratic leaders. These people believe that this is okay, that there are going to be people on their side. And so, we'll see how this calms down, but right now, only gas is getting poured on the fire. Let me tell you. Well, let's end today on kind of it's a little bit interesting. And if you haven't seen this video, it's the New York City housing czar, C. Weaver. And if you haven't seen her videos, basically saying that home ownership is white supremacy, that we need to get used to our property being taken away from us, particularly if we're white, and all property should be communal. So she's the new housing czar under Mamdani. But she broke down and started crying the other day when just simply asked by a reporter what she meant by all this, and in particular, since her mom owns a house worth $1.4 million that she lives in. Yeah, her mom and C. Weaver, because she lives with her mom. Yeah. Well, so the presidential reviews post this, which is kind of interesting and I thought kind of hilarious. Wanted to share it with you. And it says, and of course this is done tongue-in-cheek, if you can't tell. In a harrowing tale of journalistic terrorism, New York City housing czar C. Weaver recounted her traumatic encounter with a relentless reporter who dared to probe the dark secrets of her family's real estate empire. It was horrible. They just kept asking me questions. They said my mom may be a white supremacist because she owns a home, Weaver sobbed to TDS News reporter Gabe Owners, clutching a tissue embossed with "Seize Private Property" slogans. Weaver, the freshly appointed tenant czar under Mayor Zoran Mamdani, has long championed the noble cause of dismantling homeownership as a weapon of white supremacy, masquerading as wealth-building public policy. Of course, that's what she said. But when confronted about her own mother's $1.4 million Craftsman Palace in Nashville, complete with appreciating value in a gentrifying neighborhood, the hypocrisy hit harder than a rent hike. Sources say Weaver burst into tears, fled the scene like a landlord dodging code violations, and barricaded herself in her Crown Heights pad, peeking out from behind a Free Palestine poster. Quote, I mean, sure, my mom's a Vanderbilt professor sitting on a property that skyrocketed from $814,000 to over $1 million, but that's totally different. It's collective equity or something, Weaver reportedly whimpered before deleting her ex post faster than you can say impoverish the white middle class. Mayor Mamdani stood by his pick, insisting her tears prove she's committed to equitable sobbing for all. TDS News will continue monitoring this developing story of elite socialist fragility. Stay tuned for more on how Weaver plans to seize her mom's guest room for the proletariat. So anyway, I had to read that to you. It made me laugh. And stay tuned for more of this podcast coming up on Monday. And until then, I'd love to hear what you think of these big stories. Of course, you can always do that at uncommonsensepodcast.com. Thank you very much for listening.
This podcast is a production of Morganite Communications.